Welcome to Come Rain or Shine with Dan Cockerell. This is the show where we explore the power of leadership and culture on your organization's success. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and I'm with Dan Cockerell. Dan, I've got to say, it feels good to be doing that intro again. It was sporadic over the last couple years, but I'm glad I'm back.
We're back, Jody. And if you all don't know, Jody is a prolific podcaster. He's got lots of clients. So I feel very lucky to have him continuing to show up with me and do the show here. So thanks for that.
Well, I'm glad. So speaking of podcasting, I know Valerie was on the show not long ago. Valerie and I recorded what, 5 episodes together for various
Yep.
podcasts in one day. That's
Yep.
quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. So for everyone out there, I don't say shameless plug. I see proud plug. Valerie's book, Manage Like a Mother, is coming out. So if you haven't heard about it, go ahead and look it up. I think we're really excited about it.
Well, Dan, you've been on the road for a while, so I know when you travel, you speak at conferences, you speak to organizations, you usually come back with big ideas or some big topic on your mind. So what's brewing right now?
Yeah. So this is sometimes, old becomes new again. And I did talk about this recently in a conference we were doing a workshop at. But Disney worked with the Gallup organization for many years in the mid 90s. And Gallup, if you've heard of Gallup, you usually hear about them in the sense of the Gallup poll, right? So the man on the street or the woman on the street, what do they think? And they do things around opinions of what's going on, elections, but they also have a whole leadership side of their business, and they're really good at assessments. And if you've read the book Strength Finders, and now it's Strength Finders 2.0, that comes from the Gallup organization. And I went to Omaha, Nebraska in like 1998 and spent 3 days there and did the Gallup profile and spent time with them. And the way they think about it is everyone has, and they've categorized there's 34 different strengths. And if you take their assessment, it'll tell you an order of your strengths according to how you answer the questions. And if you answer it honestly, it's very accurate. And they kind of say, you know what, you should play to your strengths, figure out what your strengths are. They tell you what your top 5 strengths are and try to use those as much as you can when you do your work, because that's where you're going to get the most success. So 3 out of 5 of my strengths have to do with relationships. And so that really helped me focus my time when I work. Is more time I spend with people, the better job I do, the more creative I am, the more energy I have, the more innovative I am. And so that is what I've learned about myself. And I'm not saying the Gallup assessment, Strength Finders, is the one and only. There's Myers-Briggs, there's DISC. I mean, there's a ton of assessments, but it always helps you with sort of self-awareness. So they have a formula. And the way they talk about this is there's 4 things to measure a team's productivity. If you're leading a team or you're working with a team, or even if you have a team of partners, maybe they're not even, they're from different companies. And that's happening more and more today as we're working collaboratively with people. They're not necessarily reporting to us. We don't have any authority over them or us, but we have to partner with them and to get our work done. And Gallup has an idea about, okay, there's 4 things in productivity you need to measure to be able to, for an individual to do the best job they can, or a team to do the best job they can. So this wasn't part of the plan today, Jody, but I'll put you on the spot and we'll see what you have here. What do you think is one of the 4 things, if you're leading a team, it's really important to do very well?
Communicate.
Very good. So we'll put that under the bucket of setting clear expectations. It's funny, communicate actually covers a lot of these things. It covers expectations, which is clarity. It covers relationships, which is number 2. If someone's going to be productive, we're humans. We want to have a good relationship or a working relationship with the people we're with, whether it's our boss, our peers, our direct reports. A lot of that is communication. And the third thing they talk about is reward and recognition. as humans, we like to be rewarded and recognized when we do a good job. For some people, that's money. For some people, that's peace of mind. For some people, it's ego. Tell everyone I'm doing a great job. That's how you can reward me. For some people, it's independence. Give me independence. Don't micromanage me. Let me do my job. That's the best reward and recognition you can give me. So that's plays into productivity. And the last one is talent, having the right people in the right jobs, right? If you're really good at relationships, working by yourself is probably not the best way to leverage your talents. If you are a very much a strategic and analytical thinker, probably working in the day-to-day operation is probably not the best place for you, because you're better thinking long-term. If you're great at leading and developing people, which is developers, one of Gallup's strengths they talk about, if you don't get a chance to do that, you probably feel like you're not totally fulfilled. So the 4 things they say is basically talent. If you have the right people in the right jobs that align, that they have their natural talents or natural passions, and they get to do those at work, they're more likely to be productive and do a really good job. If you build a relationship with the people on your team, and at least you know something about them personally, you understand how they like to communicate, you understand what their passions are, their career aspirations, you build a trusting relationship, they're more likely to be productive. If people understand the expectations clearly, if they know what it takes to be successful in the job, if they know when they need to call you and when they don't need to call you, if they know how much they're empowered to make decisions, the job gets much easier and they're more productive. And then if they're rewarded and recognized, they feel good about that, and they know which behaviors are the most important ones, because that's what reward and recognition is. It's reinforcing behaviors. At Disney, if we get a guest letter and it says, you know what, I really want to thank Martha. She took great care of our family and wished our son a happy birthday and made a really memorable experience. Well, if I give Martha that letter and I give her a thank you note and saying, thank you so much for taking care of this family, I'm reinforcing that taking care of families and celebrating with them is something that we value. And she's more likely to do that again. So talent times relationships plus expectations plus reward and recognition equals the productivity of a team. So where do you go from here? Because I know a lot of people are like, well, you know, Dan, that's fine. It's a formula you put together here, but how can I actually do this? So I have 4 questions that tomorrow, if you'd like, you can go ask your team and have them fill out a little piece of paper. It can be anonymous, and you can get an idea of how you are leading. And once again, you don't have to be the boss of a team. You don't have to be the leader of a team. Maybe you're with a group of peers, and you can find out from them. So this, just depends the environment you're working in. So the first question is, I get to do what I do best every day. And people can score that a 1 to 5. A 5 is I totally agree with that statement, and a 1 is I totally disagree with that statement, and everything in the middle. But I get to do what I do best every day. If you have your team fill that out, you're going to get a good feel for whether everyone is placed well in the job they're in, the role they're in. And if you start to see some lower scores, you can start to have individual conversations with team members. I know that I just want to make sure you're in the right job. Are you getting to do the things you love to do? And if that's not the case, how can we change some of your job responsibilities? Or how can we get you to a job where you're going to be able to do those things? And, I've been in roles and jobs where I didn't get to do what I do best every day. I worked in human resources for a year in my career at Disney. I love being with teams. I love operating things. I love the knowing how I did at the end of the day. And so being on an HR team was hard because they're more long-term planning and thinking and strategic thinking. It didn't fulfill me. So that's the first question you should ask. The second question you could ask is, I have a friend at work, right? So when an employee first starts with a company, they don't have a friend at work. They don't. And sometimes, people on a team, they don't have the same values as the other team members. They're sort of detached from them. And it's really hard, especially working remotely today. Do you have a friend, someone that's more than just a colleague that you sort of connect with on a personal level? And if you do, you're going to be more likely to be productive because your emotions will sort of be taken care of in your job. The third one, I know what is expected of me, right? So this is a great one to ask your team, do you know what I expect of you? Or do you know what the company expects of you and what great performance looks like? I know what's expected of me in my job. If you get lower scores there, it may be time to have a team session and say, I really want to have a conversation about expectations and make sure maybe I haven't been as clear as a leader on what I expect your performance to be. And maybe I haven't been clear on how I expect you to communicate. And maybe I haven't been clear on what your priorities should be. And so if your team doesn't know what those things are, it's a great opportunity. And then lastly, I've been recognized for a job well done in the past 7 days. And I'll tell you, when I used to do this survey with my team, I always had the lowest score here. I've been recognized for a job well done in the past 7 days because we just aren't good. We usually are dealing with the problems. We take the high performers for granted and we forget to thank them. We forget to recognize them for doing a great job. And so you need to put a process in place and a system in place to remind yourself to do this. And if you find yourself getting lower scores in this area, which once again, I often was a lower score in a lot of companies that I've worked with, you need to remind yourself at the end of every day or the end of every week to reach out to those you've seen during the week doing a really good job and let them know, hey, I wanted to thank you for staying late last Friday. I know it wasn't expected. Here's a couple movie tickets to take your spouse out. I hope you enjoy it. Or texting someone, thanks so much today for the help you gave me in that meeting. I really appreciate your point of view. So these 4 questions are really a quick way to do a survey with your team. You can do it anonymously, put it on a little piece of paper, and ask them, score me 1 to 5. I get to do what I do best every day. I have a friend at work. I know what's expected of me, and I've been recognized for a job well done in the past 7 days. And it's a quick way to get feedback from your team. You can put it on a graph and maybe every couple months do the survey to see if you're making progress or not in these areas. And it's like I said, I call it a kind of a leadership hack. Instead of doing the 150 question survey a lot of companies do, you can get quick feedback from your team anonymously and figure out where you as a leader need to make some adjustments. So I've talked a lot, Jody, so I'll shut up for a moment.
Well, this is really good. And I took some notes as I do, but I will say this before I go into what I have to say, that Dan and I are now recording these and putting them on YouTube. So when you listen to the podcast, if you've ever found yourself wondering, what does Dan wear when he records these podcasts or what's on Dan's bookshelf? Well, now you can find out because they're posted on YouTube. Of course, Dan has several copies of Manage Like a Mother behind him. That's so right. Dan, this is one thing that I realize when you go through this, if you have low scores where people don't get to focus on your strengths, as a manager or leader, I see where you can do something about that. If they don't know what's expected of them, then I see where you right away know you've got work to do as the leader. If they're not recognized, if they get low scores there, just like you had to do, put processes in place to make sure you're, but what if you get the low score where people are saying, I don't have a friend at work? What do you do as the leader then?
Yeah. So great. It's a great question. And here's what I used to do. I would open these little pieces of paper after my staff meetings every couple months with my leadership team, and I'd look at them. If I had, 4s and 5s on, I get to do what I do best every day, and I had one sheet was filled out with maybe a 1, the next week in my staff meeting, I'd go to everyone and say, look, from what you answered, it seems like everyone here, you feel like you're in the right role. Everyone here except one person. And so if you really want to have a conversation, please set up some time and come talk to me and let's have that. So I really don't have to action plan for the team because it's one person. And so I can go talk to them about it. And that's where it gets really interesting, because if you have consistently low scores on recognition, you have something to change as a leader. If you have 1 or 2 people that give you that feedback, maybe you're not being consistent or you're not, spreading that the right way. This idea of a friend at work, I think the next conversation is, if you see that across the board as the theme, ask the question, okay, a lot of you said you don't have a friend at work. I'd be curious, do you need a friend at work? Is it important to you? And some people are going to say, you know what? Not really. I do my job. I work. I like working here, but I'm not, I don't spend a lot of social time. That is the minority. I think a lot of people want to have some kind of relationship at work or a friend that they can confide in and maybe talk to. So if it's a theme across the board, it's a great idea to have a conversation with the team about, is this important or not? And if it is, let's talk about how maybe we can spend more time as a team socially. Maybe every other Friday we can get on a Zoom call and do a little trivia game. Or maybe we can, if we're all working in the office, we can go out to lunch once a month and as a group and not talk about work and get to know each other on a personal level. So those are a couple things you can do. And if you do have one person that says, you know what, I don't have a friend at work. Once again, I think the message is, if that's important to you, come see me and let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you can connect with others, how you can, and that happens sometimes. The team is working in the office and you have a couple people who work remotely, and it's really tough for them because they don't know the team in person. And maybe you say, you know what, if this is important to you, let's fly you out for a few days to the main office so you can spend time with the group. My daughter, she joined a new company during COVID, during the pandemic. She didn't meet any of her coworkers live for like 24 months. And that was hard. And they had a team session. They all went to Nashville and met together. And that really propelled the dynamic of the team forward. So I think not only is this ask the question, but then ask them, what does it look like? And a lot of times the team will have the answer.
Yeah, that is interesting. That one was one that caught my mind. So what happens if we hear you talk about this and say, okay, I'm going to do my first survey, and you get low scores in all four? So if you have, let's just say you average at 2 out of 5 on all four questions, which one would you start working on first?
Yeah, you got some work to do. I would find maybe someone from your HR team or get someone to come facilitate a work session and to take these questions there and say, guys, you know what? I'm seeing us low scores across the board. This is probably an issue. Let's have a very open conversation. And so you get everyone in a room, maybe block an afternoon. You tell them either let's talk about this, or you leave and you let the team talk about it. Why did we all say that we don't know what's expected of us? What are those specific things? And you put them on a flip chart. Everyone here, everyone has said they never have been recognized or they don't get recognized. Let's talk about what that looks like for us. And then let the team prepare how they want to, give this feedback back to the leader. Maybe select one of them or bring in someone who's, objective from the outside or HR person to come gather all that information. And then as the leader, go back in the room and have someone recap that for you. And everything here should turn into very clear expectations and actions. You got to follow up on it. So people say, I don't know what's expected of me. Maybe you as a leader need to say, well, okay, you know what? I'm going to put this in writing. I'm going to let you know what communication looks like. I'm going to let you know what development looks like. The team may say, you always send us notes to say, I need this ASAP. Everything you tell us is ASAP. We don't know what that means. And it doesn't seem reasonable. And so they're going to help you point out tactics and things big and small as a leader that you can improve upon. And when you become a better leader, the team gets better results and that's reflected back to you. So it takes some vulnerability, but don't forget the person you're helping is yourself, because your responsibility is to get the work done through your team. And the more you can understand how they perceive you as a leader, the better you can lead them and the better results you're going to get.
And Dan talked at the top that this is the elements of team productivity. So this is how you measure it. If you're scoring low on this, your team's not very productive. If you're scoring low on 1 out of 4, you're probably productive, but you can get even better. All right, Dan. So let's say we add a 5th question and say, I get the most out of my vacations. Like, what do we do if someone scores low on that?
Well, if they put a 5, they're obviously scheduling and working with Magical Vacation Planner. And if they put a 1 or a 2, they're obviously working with someone else. And that's when you can tell them, you know what, if we want to get to a 5 as a team, there's not a lot of conversation. Go to MVP, they'll take care of you.
That's right. You can call them at 407-442-0257, Magical Vacation planner. Dan and I both use them. They are wonderful. So you can call that number or visit dancockerell.com. You'll find a banner right there on the website. All right, Dan, these 4 questions have really been fascinating to realize, to look into the elements of team productivity and a good way to measure them. And I do like that in the beginning you said what's old becomes new again, because there's really not that many new ideas and we're just focusing on the basics. And I feel like this goes back to the basics of what makes a team productive.
Absolutely. The basics are always the best to focus on.
Yes. Well, thank you, Dan. This has been great. I'm glad we're back together again. And thank you for listening to Come Rain or Shine.